Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to do the winter of 81-82 today. I've thrown GavsWeatherVids.com open to you guys to come up with your suggestions for the years that you'd like to see. And this one was pulled out of the hat. Dean suggested this winter of 81-82 and I pulled him out of the bag. And this is what I'm going to be doing today. So we're going to have a full rundown of the winter of 81-82. It was an extremely cold first half to the winter, and the second half was rather different and much milder. And we're going to have a look at all the charts, see how it all developed through this particularly severe first part of the winter. Now, for going videos, I'll mention the advertising. There may be a video ad sitting above my weather videos at GavsWeatherVids.com. If it's there, I'm recording this early because I'm going to go to hospital and have a minor operation, and I'll be recuperating while you're actually watching this. So I'm not sure if there'll be a video ad or not. If there is, please play it. You'll be supporting GavsWeatherVids.com by doing it. So this is the first chart we're starting off with for the winter of 81-82. It's the 1st of December 1981, and we have this ridge of high pressure coming in off the Atlantic. There was a warm front moving in across the country with this, and we actually start off on a pretty mild note during the winter of 81-82. Here we are on the 3rd of December, bringing in this balmy westerly flow across the country. Temperatures were up to 15 degrees in some places with this, 59 Fahrenheit, so it was a proper mild, balmy sort of start to December, but it wasn't to last, and things did change really quite dramatically as we went further on into the first week. Here's the upper air temperatures on the 3rd of December, really very mild air bathing the country. You wouldn't know, looking at this, just how cold it was going to get, but by the 4th we were already starting to bring some much colder air down in towards Shetland, and that was on a cold front, and this really marked the start of the change, because as we go into the 4th of December, that high pressure is pulling out into the Atlantic and the winds are going round to a north or a northwesterly direction. 1 week cold front is coming down across the country, just cooling things off, but this isn't the start of the proper cold air that comes in later. But as we go into the 5th of December, well then we're in a much cooler, fresher run of north to northwest winds. Not particularly cold, temperatures near normal away from the north and the northeast. But as we go through to the 6th, then we start to see signs of that cold air really beginning to dig in. The high pressure is pulling out into the Atlantic. We're opening the doors to this cold northerly flow. There's a cold front coming in to the north and the northwest of Scotland, and really cold air is digging in behind that cold front. As we go through to the 7th, that cold front is starting to make further progress down across the country. A big drop in temperature taking place behind that cold front, temperatures dropping by many degrees, and we see heavy snow developing along that cold front. In fact, we have heavy rain and it turns to snow along the cold front. As we go through towards the upper air temperatures on the 7th, we see that we do have cold air digging in, still relatively mild to the south and the southwest. As we go through to the 8th, that's when we start to see that really cold air digging in, and the cold front actually forming an area of low pressure along it as it's stalling, and this cold front is digging in behind it. So on the 8th of December there was some really heavy snow in parts of the country. London, for instance, had some very heavy snow and some transport disruption along that cold front. Rains initially, but it turned rapidly to snow as the temperature dropped by several degrees very rapidly. There's the -5 iceberg coming down with that cold front. As we move through to the 9th, well then we're all in a run of very cold northerly winds across the country. The cold front has cleared, taken away that initial band of heavy snow which did bring disruption to the south, and we're all in a run of bitterly cold northerly winds as we go through to the upper air temperatures on the 9th. Again, we're looking at really cold air across all parts of the country. As we move through to the 10th of December, then everything is starting to become rather slack, and of course we've got very cold air over the country. So around the 10th, the 11th, we're into the 10th, 11th, 12th, we're into this sort of coldest spell of the winter, to be honest, under this slack sort of flow. We've got snow showers around coast, but inland we've got a lot of freezing fog and some very severe frost. And as we move through in towards the 11th and into the 12th as well, we are looking at very severe frost there across the country. For instance, on the night of the 11th, 12th, we had temperatures going down to -22 in some parts of the country, -25 on the night on the night of the 12th into the 13th. And the reason this is happening is we've got a legacy of cold pool of air over the country, dense low-level cold air, and a very slack sort of gradients. So we have got low pressure producing some snow showers around the coast, but it is quite dry really for many inland parts of the country. As I say, we've got very slack gradients, a severe reservoir of cold air sitting over the country. Some very, very severe frosts were happening on these nights, the 10th to the 11th, the 11th to the 12th, and the 12th to the 13th. Temperatures widely by night down to minus 22, minus 23, minus 25, as I say, was recorded on the night of the 12th and the 13th. And daytime temperatures were very cold as well during this period, not really getting above minus 10, minus 12 as maximum temperatures in some parts of the country. Shropshire, for instance, very severe frost. And of course, there was severe freezing fog going on with this as well. And there wasn't going to be another cold spell to rival this in December until December 1995. We didn't have these sort of temperatures again. So really severe frost around that spell, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Now, as we go beyond that, we bring this area of low pressure in across the country into the 14th, and that produces a lot of heavy snow across many parts of the country, particularly in the south, hit by a real blizzard. There was wind speeds up to 95 miles an hour down across the southwest. I'd say some really heavy snow, storm surges as well, and of course with winds like that, there was blizzard conditions across parts of the south and the southwest of the country. So again, we've got big snow drifts starting to build up as we get 3-foot drifts developing across some parts of, say, northern England, Wales, and the Midlands, with this deep area of low pressure. Eventually, this does introduce somewhat slightly less cold air actually as we go through towards the 15th and the 16th. We're starting just nudging some slightly less cold air to the south, and that did produce a bit of a thaw of snow. And if we have a look at the upper air temperatures, we can see that yes, the cold air does recede just a little bit around the 14th and the 15th as this blizzard is going on with this area of low pressure. But it wasn't the end of the cold air, and it didn't make it much further north than Wales and the Midlands really. It's only in the south that we saw a bit of a thaw of that lying snow taking place. The unusual thing about this winter is that the Atlantic is very active, but the cold air just holds it off all the time. So as we go through to the 16th, the cold air is coming back, and what happened is that the Met Office and the BBC often forecast through this month, December 1981, a thaw of the snow and an end to the cold weather. And actually, when the time arrived, the cold weather didn't relent. The cold weather came back. It held on and dug back in, and it was something quite unique about this winter, to be honest, that aspect of it. So as we go through to the 16th, we've got the low pressure there slipping away to the south. The cold air is re-establishing. As I say, it was forecast to end through this middle part of the month, and it was forecast to be a much milder second half of the month, and it didn't happen. So as we go through to the 17th, well, there we have more cold air really sitting across the country. We have got some slightly less cold air, as I say, in the south, but really it's cold across many parts of the country. And as we go through to the 18th, we're still maintaining that cold air, the high pressure digging down from Greenland and Iceland across the country, bringing in this bitterly cold north or northeasterly flow. And this low pressure here to the south was actually producing more snow across some parts of the country. Now, as we go through to the 19th and on in towards the 20th, we've got a real tragedy that occurred here with this area of low pressure trying to move in off the Atlantic. If I move through to the next chart, you can see what happened. It produced some very, very strong winds across the country, a proper southerly gale coming in there, hitting the cold air, producing more heavy snow. But what happened with this is that a lifeboat capsized, the Penlee lifeboat capsized late on the 19th, and that unfortunately led to the loss of life of 16 people. 16 people died in that tragedy down in the southwest, and one of the worst disasters to occur actually around our coast. It was a very severe situation. It just goes to show that how severe we like severe weather, but it does have consequences sometimes, this severe weather. And yes, 19 people were killed with this area of low pressure trying to come in and this southerly gale. The southerly gale produced more snow. There was more heavy snow around this period, and it's coming in to that cold air, stalling again. And what's going to happen is, after it's deposited the snow across many central western parts of the country, what happens, it starts to slip away, and we find that cold air moving back in once again. So as we go to the 22nd of December, there's the low pressure. It's stalled, it's died, it's slipping away, and the cold air is re-establishing from the east and the northeast. And that's really how we go into the Christmas period, with that cold air firmly established. The low pressure is trying to come up from the south on Christmas Eve to produce some snow across southern parts of the country, but actually it was a pretty dry Christmas, to be honest. We didn't have much snow falling, but we had a lot of snow on the ground, many areas having deep snow cover over the Christmas period, and it was very cold Christmas as well. So whilst it wasn't technically a white Christmas because no snow fell, there was a lot of snow on the ground. Now we're coming to the end of the cold spell for December, with this area of low pressure developing on Boxing Day, taking a very similar course to the one that caused the Penlee disaster on the 19th into the 20th, but this one had more umph in it, and we did finally, as we go through to the 27th, see the mild air pushing in. The cold air is retreating as this low pressure finally moves in across the country. And as we go through to the 28th, the upper air temperature showing that the cold air is starting to retreat away. And by the time we get through to New Year's Eve, on the 31st of December 1981, New Year's Eve, we're all in a much milder run then of west to southwesterly winds, with this area of low pressure firmly in control. Now, was that the end of the severely cold winter? No, it wasn't, because we've still got all this blocking up to the north of the country. As we run through into January, we're going to see the cold weather coming back in style. So this is the chart for January the 1st, 1982. We're still under that mild air across the country, Atlantic dominating weather, and low pressure is producing a lot of heavy rain here as we go through the opening days of January 1982. There's up to 100 millimetres of rain across some parts of the north of the country, the uplands, southern uplands and the Pennines. Just over 100 millimetres of rain falling during this opening week, obviously producing flooding. The ground is still frozen from the December freeze, so much of that rain just ran off and produced a lot of flooding. There's severe flooding around York, for instance. Here's the upper air temperatures on the 4th of January. We're generally very mild, but look at all this cold air sitting up to the north of the country. That's waiting to attack us once again. As we move through to the 5th and then through to the 6th, we start to open the floodgates to that cold air. It's beginning to come back on the 5th in towards Scotland. As we go through to the 6th, that low pressure clears away. For the next area of low pressure in the Atlantic is stalling. We're opening the doors to that east or northeasterly flow, bringing the bitterly cold air back. So here's the upper air temperatures for the 6th of January. Yes, we're starting to dig that severely cold air in once again. Of course, we've got a lot of flooding now, so all of that flood water is freezing over as this severely cold air begins to dig in. And as we go through towards the 7th, well, it really is bitterly cold. Some places getting minimum temperatures as low as minus 26 degrees on the night of the 6th and the 7th in the north of the country, because we build this high pressure in, and we've got very cold, severely cold air really sitting across the country. The minus 10 isotherm there is across the country, so it's severely cold, and with the high pressure we're seeing temperatures again dipping down into the minus 20s, but mid minus 20s in some parts of the country. Minus 26.8 was the actual temperature at Grandtown-on-Spey up in the north. Now, as we move beyond this, we're going to start to see the low pressure beginning to attack once again as we go in towards the 8th. So on the 8th and the 9th of January, we start to get a very severe blizzard moving in, with this area of low pressure moving into that cold air, trying to push the mild air back in. There's weather fronts moving into this with that low pressure. And yes, the 8th and the 9th see a severe blizzard, particularly for Wales and the Midlands, where we get over 30 to 50 centimetres of snow falling in this blizzard between the 8th and the 9th of January. Look at the ice bars streaming in from the east, severely cold air and snow blowing around, 30 to 50 centimetres of the stuff falling through Wales and the Midlands. One of the great Midlands blizzards across much of the Midlands, to say Wales, southwestern England as well. Milder air is trying to come in from the south as we go through towards the 9th. There's the temperatures beginning to lift up a little bit in the south on the 9th, but we're still really locked in that easterly gale across the country, and we've got severe drift, 20-foot snow drifts in some places, very severe blizzards, a lot of places through the Midlands, Wales, southwest England cut off. Now we do get a little bit of a thaw of the snow as we go through towards the 9th in the far southwest. We actually start to produce some ice down in the southwest. We get a bit of an ice storm developing, but really this area of high pressure then is squeezing out weather fronts, so all of the snow is beginning to ease off, and then we start to get some very, very severe frost beginning to take place as we go through in towards the 10th and the 11th and the 12th. We get some really severe frost, and we actually get the all-time temperature record during this period around the 10th, the 11th of January. Yes, we get temperatures going down to minus 27.2, which is equaling the all-time temperature record on the morning of the 10th. Widely temperatures down to minus 19, minus 20, minus 21 from the Midlands northwards under that very deep snow cover with this area of high pressure. Now this is coming towards the end now for cold weather. We have this area of high pressure beginning to collapse over the country. So the cold weather is beginning to come to an end. All this low pressure is forming to the north. The polar vortex is coming back to the north of the country. So after some very severely cold weather around the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, we begin to see the thaw starting to take place as we go through to the 15th of January. Winds are going into the south, starting to lift those temperatures up, and that's the end of the cold winter. Then as we go beyond this, we start to see much, much milder weather coming in off the Atlantic. The severely cold air and the snow has gone away, and as often happens in winters that are very cold at the start, the second half is much milder. So as we go through into February, the Atlantic is dominating the weather. We're in westerly winds across the country. It really is much milder for the second half of the winter, a really sort of pathetic end to a very severely cold winter. But you do find this a lot in winters that have severely cold Decembers. Very often after Christmas it'll go away and never come back, but we did get that very severely cold spell in January. Central England temperature for December 1981 was 0.3, and the Central England temperature for January 1982 was 2.6. Actually, that for January 82 wasn't too bad because we had that milder second half of the month and the mild start. But that one in December, 0.3, was the coldest since 1890, which had a Central England temperature, there it is, of minus 0.8. So it was the coldest December I should say, of the 20th century. And would it ever be beaten? Well, as we know, 2010 did beat it. And I'll be looking at that in the next historic video, the severely cold December of 2010, which beat 1981. Hope you enjoyed this look at winter of 81-82. Hope it's brought back a few memories for you. It was a very severely cold December and start of January, and I hope you enjoyed it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.